I've had a couple of questions come in, and so I'd like at least to answer this one. It's a rather wide question, and I'm sure we could take all week to answer this, but I wonder if one of you might have a go at this, perhaps Catherine, because it's picking up on your points. How do we break down the framework of the medical model to ensure that we build and support communities to care and support each other? Do you feel you can answer that? Thank you.
Phil, obviously I'm speaking from outside of the medical model, and again, I just want to emphasise that if what I've got to say is in no way to diminish the excellent work that goes on in GP surgeries and elsewhere. The work we're doing at the moment in the Social Innovation Group at the University of Exeter's Penryn campus, which I'm the co-director of, is precisely about the tools that are needed by communities in order to understand their particular configuration of people, organisations, resources, agencies, energies, governance, you name it, in order to identify their potential and build on that potential. And for me, this is very much about having a bit of a culture shift. I noticed in the excellent video about a film about social prescribing that someone talks about the how a lot of these problems used to go to the parish priest, and we've sort of replaced many sites and organisations with whom people would connect with the GP surgery. It stands in as a proxy for lots of other things. And I think it's time to rethink that a bit, because I feel as if there's a huge amount of potential in communities, a huge amount of potential in the voluntary sector, and that we can actually empower people to work in their communities alongside the GP surgery. This is in no way to try and marginalise the GP surgery in all of this, but to exercise leadership on their own behalf and come up with really bespoke solutions that are very attentive to all those things I talked about, the place-based characteristics of somewhere. So that for me it's partly about thinking about what's next for social prescribing. As I said, what's the most radical thing we could think of to do with social prescribing to make it the most powerful tool it can be.
Catherine, thank you. Can I just pick up on a point that you mentioned in terms of how do you go about identifying and encouraging leadership in the communities who can actually take charge of the situation in which they find themselves and not exclude where the traditional delivery system has been at work, but actually augment it and work alongside it. I wonder, from your vantage, Michael, are you in a position to give an answer to that?
Yeah, well, yes, I am. And I think I'd say a slight yes, but, or more of a yes and to what Catherine has said, which is a big problem for people like Stuart and myself is to persuade our medical community that this actually matters. And I'd be loath to let the community, if you like, separate from primary care, because we've got a real job on our hands to try and alter what medicine means, what medicine does. And I think absolutely it needs to be in the community, but almost we need to bring primary care into that community and make primary care part of creating community health. And what I'm seeing, answering your question right now, Donald, throughout the country, is that leaders come from every sort of place. Sometimes they're coming from primary care, sometimes they come from the council, sometimes they're coming from the voluntary sector. But almost universally, it's due to individual heroes, people that pick up the baton and run with it. And if we sort of formalise too much a model of how we bring this about, then we might lose that passion and individuality that is actually needed to seed the whole system. So I think it's very much, as a social prescription, about individuals, about leaders. And as I say, I'd say don't leave primary care out, because we've really got to grow up. We've got to realise that medicine is more than simply pills and procedures, and we need, if you like, this as much as the community does.
Absolutely.
Michael, thank you. I have another question here, which is somewhat related, so I'm going to ask it. How are you managing to link up organisations to access the support to address digital exclusion? There's so much out there, but difficult for smaller organisations to keep across everything. First of all, to the group of four, is the question understood? And if I come to you, Matthew, are you in a position to answer it or give a response? Matthew? Sorry, I meant Stuart. Forgive me, Stuart.
So I think the question was around kind of digital exclusion of organisations rather than individuals. Is that right?
That's correct, and particularly smaller organisations.
Yeah, you know, I think digital exclusion generically is a big issue, and again, it furthers the inequalities. And I think, you know, I don't have a specific answer around kind of digital enablement. What you do certainly find is when you can generate a community around social prescribing, where there's this more collaborative spirit, you do find that you can share resources and share skills and help one another out. So we have we've developed an app called a Help at Hand app, which has helped to showcase a digital offer locally. And certainly there is a bit of support around that, and our social prescribers, Hayley, will help the smaller organisations access that. I mean, organisational digital enablement is an issue, there's no doubt about it. I think my bigger fear is more the digital literacy of some of the people who really need to access social prescribing, and about how we actually help them become more digitally literate. Again, against this background of health inequalities, the fear is that they are going to get further left behind due to the digital issues. We are about to start some work with Samir Gray in St Austell to look at how we can enable particularly our over 60s to be more digitally literate.
Stuart, thank you very much indeed. I know we'll be coming back to this issue because of the subject matter of further speakers. I have one last question to you, Michael, if I could ask that. And you both, Stuart and you, mentioned the notion of children and youth. The question is, so you say that there is a new focus on children and young people. Is there any reason to believe that this will continue post-COVID?
I think there's good reason. I mean, clearly in Stuart's case, he's already got a children's link worker, and I'm hearing about these developing all over the country. And I think one reason it's got to continue post-COVID is because of the dire situation. You know, I mean, we've got nationally girls between 14 and 16-year-old, 1/4 are harming themselves, you know, and that's got worse during COVID. So we've got a real need there. And a focus now, which wasn't nationally, I have to say, it was mainly on isolated elderly people and long-term disease, but the focus nationally is changing to children at NHS England and the Department of Health. And I'm glad to say there are some money and funds that we'll be able to bid for in the next few months, substantially increasing the capacity to look after children. And also, finally, children are going to come into the scene. And if you ask people in Cullompton, you asked our school children, secondary children in Cullompton, what was the thing that most changed their lives? And they said, if we had more capacity to volunteer and we had volunteering capabilities. Well, you know, that falls into the hands of everything we're talking about at the moment, from, you know, secondary school children, teaching pensioners how to you know, access IT, to the whole gamut of recreating social capital. So for me, this is something that's going to get very big. It's not going to go back in its box, no, Donald.
Michael, thank you very much. And let me thank, on behalf of everyone, the first group, Michael, Catherine, Luke and Stuart, many thanks for your stimulating commentaries. And I think already we've raised quite a few, not just interesting, but complex matters for debate.